and my company is PurdueVision.com. That's Perdue Vision.com. That is a advertising agency I started about 10 years ago, and we do for everything from graphic design, web design, photography, printing, vehicle graphics, signs, banners, you name it. My other company is PaulPerdue.com. That's PaulPerdue.com. And that is my photography website. I'm working on a Mac right now, MacBook Pro, and I am going to show you guys how to edit your New Year's Eve party or whatever event that you're photographing, weddings, bar mitzvahs, events, corporates, whatever it is that you're doing. Let's just go through some of these Photoshop tools. Yes, you can use Lightroom. Yes, you can use Aperture, but you'll never have the full ability to branch out and do the diverse changes that you can in Photoshop. It is the most robust photo program I've ever used, or at least that I know of. If you're on a PC, you're going to probably use, instead of Command key, I think it is an Alt or Control, but I'm not really sure because I use a Mac. So figure that out, because all of the stuff that I teach is based off of keyboard shortcuts. At least most of it. I'd say 80% is keyboard shortcuts. If you want to be a real photographer, I highly recommend you learn your shortcuts in Photoshop, just because it's going to give you the production edge. You're going to be able to really fly through these changes. And in anything you do in life, time is money. So the longer you take to edit your photos, the less you're getting paid. Because you charge what, $100 an hour, $75 an hour, $150 an hour, whatever you charge. The less time it takes you to get that project done to perfection and to the client with satisfaction, the more money you're going to make. So time equals money. Cost analysis. We'll go into finances on another time. All right, so let's see. Let's look through these pictures. Looks like we're still uploading some here. I like to personally keep my palettes extremely small. So let's just drag these over here. I just don't feel like we need to have all of our screen hustled up with palettes. Learn your palettes too. I mean, if you're using Photoshop like this and you have your palettes out, learn them. Screen space is prime real estate, and you want to deal with prime real estate because the photos are the subject, not your palettes, not your tools over here. All right, so let's go in. Let's start. If you hit Command O, it's gonna stretch the image to your screen. But I want to do more than that. I'd actually like to zoom in on this and really get in here and see what we got going on. So far, I see a little issue with grain. And a little issue with brightness. I think we could be a little bright. So let's go to our layers palette. Let's start out here. We're going to add an adjustment layer, and we're going to do curves. So that's going to actually not affect it's going to affect the photo of what you see, but it's not going to actually affect that layer. So it's in a layer adjustment. And I typically put a dot right here in the middle, and I like to stretch it up, because that way we're getting, you see our histograms has a really nice replication from perfect blacks to perfect whites. So we've got a good contrast going on here. Plus I've already run auto levels and shadow and highlights on every single photo. It was a batch file of about 500 photos, so you'll find different batch techniques that work for you if you're doing multiple photos. And I'll go into that in another study, batch filing that is. All right, so we're going to raise this up and make it lighter so that we can, you can see that we've lightened that image up. I like that. I like that a little bit. I always like my pictures to be a little bit on the lighter side. I feel it gives them a little more of a high-end pop. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this photo and I'm going to edit with Paintbrush. Like if I just click right here in the middle, it's going to make it darker, because what it's doing essentially is it's removing that technique. Command Z to go back, Control click to change the brush size. That's Control click. Just click on the screen, and then you go up here. Look, that's just too small. So let's go back. Let's come up here. Still too small. I want to work in this area over here, so I'm gonna teeter-totter around this size right here. All right, that looks good. One thing I like to do is okay, Command minus or plus will make the image smaller or bigger. So I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to make it bigger just by grabbing that and pulling it out. I want my canvas to be bigger. And I'm just going to paint away on this area right here. You see, and it's really not coming back in because honestly, when a logo or when you're using vinyl banner backdrops, the light will sometimes wash areas out just because it's a highly reflective material. The best banner material to buy, well, not banner material, but the best material to buy for a shoot like this would be a cloth, where you actually print on a cloth. It's a little more expensive, but you know what? This banner material did just fine from what we were doing at this event. So we had two lights set up, you know, two soft umbrellas. You can actually see that in their eyes. I'm zooming in here. You can see some grain. I'll be honest with you. I did not use my Canon 5D to shoot this. We had that doing some around. We used it for low light because it has such a higher ISO setting, and it's capable of so much more when you're dealing with low light. This was my 30D, so yeah, you can laugh, but it still did a really good job, and for what we're using these images for, it'll be fine. I've got the clone stamp tool right here, all right, and we're going to set that to about 26 to 30%. I'm going to hit the option button. You'll see this little crosshair, and then you'll click with your mouse. Make sure it's near the area you're affecting. And I'm just clicking to lighten that, soften that. You know, we want to take off maybe 5 or 10 years. Everybody likes to be young, right? Young and sexy. Let's just say that. Trust me. I've seen this even on babies. Babies have hard lines under their eyes. You know, I mean, you try fighting your way out of a womb and feeling good about that. But at any rate, let's go ahead and just click through these and see. You know, these women were absolutely gorgeous. I mean, there's really not much that I could do to these pictures to make them look any better. You know, every woman is their own worst critic, I feel, though, when it comes to photography. I've taken some of the most beautiful women and photograph them, and they'll still, feel a little self-conscious about, oh, maybe my arms are fat, or, I mean, whatever. I mean, look at that arm. That arm looks just fine. But, to save face, I'm going to use the Filter Liquify tool, which is Shift-Command-X. This is probably one of the tools that I didn't actually know the shortcut for. But you can find all the shortcuts up here. Anytime you click on one of your menu options up here, it's got the shortcut right there at the end. Bam. You see that? All right. So we've got this Liquify tool. And only tool I'll normally use is the Forward Warp tool. And it's really kind of cool. So we just drag this down here. We want to make sure that the brush size is a good size for what we're going to be using it for. And I'm not really trying to edit her arm. I mean, her arm looks fine. Also, when you're coming over something like this events, you don't want it to look like you've done something. So watch out for stuff like that when you're editing. I mean, I just like tightening people up just a little bit. Women love butts. Oh, I wish my butt was a little bit bigger. Just a tiny hair. Oh my gosh, that little change right there. Not that she needed it, but women, I swear, you're your own worst critic. You'll look at yourself and you'll be like, oh man, my arm looks too big, or I just don't like the way that looks. So we try to go in and what my thing is adjusting people to look amazing. Anybody can do this stuff. It takes years to get very proficient at it, and honestly, I could be flying through this thing right now, but I don't think you would learn anything. So, all right, so we'll save that. I think that's probably a good. Here, let's do you can just see Apple Z to do a before and after, so you can just see what I did. Nothing that you would actually notice too much of, right? But they look better, don't they? Just taking off just that little bit. I mean, you would never notice it to begin with, but now that you see it, you're like, yeah, I see it. I think that looks a little better. Another thing, let me see, I just missed this. The way his hat is on his ears, pushing him out just a little bit. This is a perfect example. Nobody would want to look at themselves and feel like, hey, you know what, I wish my ears weren't pointing out so damn much, you know? So I'm going to grab those, and let's just push those in. You know, make sure you don't alter like the hat or anything. You don't want it to look retarded. Maybe grab his temple there and pull it in. All right, hit OK, because I think we got a good edit on that one. Bam, look at that little change. Yeah, technically if you hit it fast enough, maybe he'll fly away. Woo! Nah, I'm just kidding. All right, looks good though. I think at this point we look really good. Let's go in and look on this suit. Okay, I'm seeing grain on here. I don't know about you. I'm going to duplicate this layer. Just grab it and drag it down to the paper right next to the trash can. That'll duplicate your layer. Then we're going to go to Noise, Reduce Noise. This is really up to you what you do with your image. Now, you've got a big view here, so you can see the suit looks great. If I grab it and drag it, you can see that there is color. I let go, and it shows what it looks like afterwards. So grab that, pull it around. You can see what the effect is, and then afterwards. You see how it kind of mutes her face? It pulls the color out. You see that? I don't like that. But I do like what it does to the clothing. The clothing shouldn't have, his suit is black. There should not be any green or purple or red in that suit. And same for hers. And typically when you photograph black stuff, you're going to get that. Your backgrounds will get it. I don't so much mind having, grain in the background of my image because it's not the subject. And honestly, in my opinion, I feel it gives it somewhat of an artistic texture. It doesn't bother me. For many people, I know you're probably saying, you know what, that's just because you're an amateur. But, after 10 years of doing this, and as much as I shoot, you can think whatever you like. It's no sweat off my chest. So what I just did here is I've got this, I duplicated the layer, right? And somehow I moved it. So let me go back over here. Anytime you do something you don't want to do, go to your history. Your history is right here. It's a little arrow with some boxes. And just go, okay, so duplicate. See, liquefy. Okay, so duplicate was the last edit that I did to this image. Now let's just check and see if that's better. Yeah, okay. You know what? I need to run that filter because it did not work. Okay, filter, reduce noise. All right, so there we go. Filter, reduce noise. Yay, it's working. What I'm going to do now is, I don't want it to affect their faces. I think the faces can have grain and color in them because, honestly, being that they're a light color anyways to begin with, they're not going to have too much of that problem. It's only dark colors in the shadows that get a lot of grain. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take that grain out by painting away. So I'm going to do a Command A to select everything, and then I'm going to click on the delete key. But you have to have white as your top color for the foreground and background colors. You see this right over here? You just switch it over, hit delete. This turns black. You see that? It'll turn black once you hit delete. And basically, you see the grain? The grain is in there. I could paint that grain away right now if I had a white brush. And I do. So let's do this. Let's turn that all the way up. You see that? You see how much better that makes the suit look? The only problem is I would rather paint away their faces than I would their entire bodies. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change this back and I'm going to hit delete again. So now the effect is in their face. Basically, we just inverted it. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pop that color in their face. Just give them some color, you know? We're human. We have color in our face. There we go. Pop those lips, pop those cheeks, pop those eyes. Not that they need pop that much because she's beautiful. Beauty-muss. All right. I'm going to leave it on their arms. but just the faces, just to give it that color pop, you know. We want the clothes to be less, we don't want it to upstage their eyes. I mean, their eyes and their face and their lips. I think that looks good in my opinion. I mean, we're not trying to, like, you know, win any awards here. We're just submitting these for inclusion in a magazine. And honestly, if you've been to any red carpet events, most of them do not have like a dual light setup to where you can get really nice photos like this. So I think that this works just fine. Another tool I really like is the Shadow Highlights tool. If you go into that under the image, we can pull up a lot of those shadows that are currently in. Oh, you know what? I'm on the wrong layer. See, now that we've got that adjustment done, see, let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see this. Sorry to get ahead of myself, but watch the suits. Watch the clothes. You see that? You see it pull that color out? Very subtle. Here, let me go in even more. There. That's what we just did. We just removed that color because it's not natural. It's not supposed to be there. That's not what it looks like in real life. And that's what you have to realize. If you're shooting all your pictures and you're doing it in RAW and you're having to go back and edit your images because they're all out of color, then you need to learn about white balance. Look it up online, figure out what your camera settings do, and start using your white balance so that you can convert your images pre-production. Before you go into that post, get them done right before. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to flatten this image. Image, you go to Layer, Flatten, and I want to show you what the Shadow and Highlights does. Now this can kind of make it look a little odd. So you don't want to go too much with it, but I feel like some images may need a little bit more than others. And it's totally like an adjustment that you have to kind of be very mindful of. You don't want to go too much. You don't want to go too little. You can zoom in with the Command plus. Zoom in with Command plus. And I think this looks pretty good. Let's zoom out again. All right, I think this is good. Let's do that effect right there. All right, we're going to zoom in, just double check everything looks good. Yeah, I think they look pretty good, don't you? All right. You know, like I said, we're not trying to win any awards here. We're just trying to clean them up a little bit, make them look good, make sure the color's right, make sure the hue and saturation are there, contrast, lightness, brightness, darkness. You want the perfect blacks and perfect whites. Somewhere in this image, like right in here, there's probably perfect black. On her shoe, there's perfect black. And then obviously right over here where the flash kind of washed this area out, you've got perfect whites. Okay, so at this point, I think we're good. I'm going to save that image, and we're going to close it. Again, this is Paul Purdue with Purdue Vision. I'm going to give a lot more of these classes. So if you have anything that you specifically want to see me do, let me know and I'll show you examples of it. You can reach me on either of my websites, paulperdue.com or purduevision.com. And again, Purdue is spelled P-E-R-D-U-E. Matter of fact, if you Google Purdue Vision, the first like 6 pages of Google will come up. And no, I'm not an optometrist, as you can see. I think it's funny how most people will automatically think the most logical thing when it comes to your brand. Obviously, branding is an interesting. I mean, the most powerful company on earth, Google, right? Google. It's the most ridiculous words you could think of, but at the same time, it's the most powerful company in the world, probably next to Facebook, next to Apple Computer, next to Microsoft. So you know, to each their own. You know. Purdue Vision, it's my name. You know, I'm going to be stuck with that the rest of my life. Might as well use it, right? Okay, so let's close that one down. All right. Well, if you want to keep on going, let's keep on going. I've already edited this one. That's why it looks perfect. Let's pull this one up. Let's see what we got here. For me, this guy looks a little red, just a little bit red. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my layers. And let's duplicate that layer off the bat, right? I'm going to take it and do a, let's see here, selective color sounds good to me. And let's pull that red back. And let's drag their faces. You want to play with these sliders, right? Because, I mean, you were there. You were at the event. You know what these people should look like. Obviously, you know, in real light, they may have been red. They may have been getting a lot of reflections from, you know, colors that were in the room, and that's why they look that way in your camera. So I've already made this adjustment. You can see that I pulled the red back, right? And to be honest with you, I think it's actually made the entire image look better. So I'm not going to actually pull that out of anything. Normally I would add an adjustment layer and paint it off of something else. You see how I can affect, you know, this other area over here. So here's what we're going to do. All right, I'm going to flatten the image, and let's zoom in, and let's give this guy a little editing time. So I'm going to go to the healing brush tool, and what you want to do is you want to click Control, and you want to hold Control on your keyboard and click on the image, and that'll bring up your mouse, your brush. And you make the diameter the size that you need it, and make sure your hardness is turned down. Actually, I apologize. Hardness all the way up when you're using the healing brush tool. We're going to hold Option, and we're going to click near the area. You want to make sure you're near the area that you're affecting. Bam. Option, click, near the area. Option, click near the area, click over. Not holding Option. You don't hold Option when you actually apply the filter. So, you know, maybe some of these little hard lines right over here. You know, maybe he was stressing too hard to look like super cool Mr. Guy. Want to make sure that I look cool. And he looks cool. So we just want to make sure that he's, you know, he doesn't look old doing it. Because we are all fighting a battle of age, and we want to make sure that we are forever young. And that's why you hire Purdue Vision or Paul Purdue, myself, as your photographer. Because no matter what you look like, whether you're drunk or you're tipsy or you're sober or you're tired or you just got done working out, no matter what it is that you're doing or how you look, we're going to go in there and we're going to make you look awesome. And what I'm doing right now is, as you see, I'm pulling the clone stamp tool, and I've dropped the opacity down to like a 26%. We'll just make it 25% because it's a quota. We'll do a quota of the opacity. Oh, I went too far. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to hit Command Z to remove that effect, right? And I want to soften this hard line, you know, of shadow, because it kind of gives it a demonic look. I mean, this guy, I don't know what his religious tendencies are, but we're just going to go ahead and say that he doesn't need to look like the son of Lucifer, and we'll clean this up right here so that he's got a nice soft transition of color and light coming down his eyes. All right, so that looks good. Looks like there might have been a zit right here, maybe last month. Just left a little indentation there, and we'll clean this stuff up. Maybe a little cat scratch fever right there. Let's see what we got right here. I mean, obviously there's some texture, there's some grain in this, but I think it adds character to the photo. I'm not going to worry about that. Plus, I think this particular picture was taken with my 30D, which is not my 5D, but the one that I had in my hand at the time. And you know what? It's good for what it is. It's going to make a fine photo. Okay, so let's just keep going through here. Clicks on some of this stuff. Bam! Yes, looking good. Yeah. Make sure you're selecting these areas nearby and holding the option and clicking. Option, click. You see those crosshairs? That is selecting whatever area I am on, and it is replicating that texture for me in another area while preserving the color that's behind it. I know it's a little confusing. There's so much you're going to learn on this. It's just going to take time for you doing it, watching these videos. Here we go. Let's just soften hers too. Beautiful girl, beautiful. All right, if you're hearing that in the background, that's my phone ringing. Somebody keeps blowing me up. I can't ever get peace and quiet. You know what? I should have probably turned that off. I'm not really good at this. So this is actually my first time editing these things. Well, yeah, no, not really. In 10 years, this is the first time I've ever used Photoshop. No, this is the first time I've actually recorded my screen. So you'll have to give me some feedback on what I need to do. And I know your first one is going to be, you're going way too fast. And you're right. But it's hard to do this in a timely manner without being quick. Okay, so this is the clone stamp tool, and we're using that again. I got the opacity at 25, and what I'm doing is that I'm softening these areas of her face that are blown out. I mean, like, there's really no information there, so I'm just bringing her cheek over. I'm selecting right here and dropping it in. What about her nose? Let's go down here and just add some color in there too. You see how that, sometimes your flash, depending upon where you're shooting, if you're using you know, a Gary Fong diffuser, or if you've got an umbrella that an assistant may be carrying with you, or if you're just using direct flash, there's so many different ways that you may want to shoot. Personally, I like indirect soft light. It always makes your images look better. I think this looks pretty good. But let's do a little more. I'm going to add a curves adjustment on the layer palette. So we're in the layer palette. Click on your layer adjustment, and let's do curves. And let's pull it up to where we see it and we like it. All right. I'd say right about there. I always pull it up just a little bit. But at the same time, I don't want it all in their face. So you see this area right here, this white? We're going to paint black into that. You see how I just dropped it back down? I don't want to do it that much, so I'm going to actually turn the opacity down. Anytime you want to lessen the effect, you just hit that opacity. And I'm just going to paint these lightened areas of her face, and maybe of his face. But see how it gives this nice shine down their heads and on their hair? I like that. You know, maybe right in here, maybe on her shoulder. Just softening those areas of light that it's just kind of too much. All right. Flatten that image. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. I'm going to do an edited version of this. I think that we're pretty much golden on this image the way it is. Let's just check, make sure there's nothing on the... Oop, what is that? Somebody forgot to wipe off that area's got a head chip. All right, there we go. Bam. Get rid of that. Anything else back there? I think that button's okay. Actually, is that supposed to be a white button? I don't know. I guess, no, actually it's not. Okay, so we're missing a button, people, a button. Here's a perfect example. Let's just take this clone stamp tool, turn that all the way up to 100%. All right, we're going to grab the center of that button right there, right? All right, I'm option clicking in the middle of that button. All right, I'm going to add a second layer because I don't want this. I have a feeling it's not going to match up. Well, it did match up. Well, you know what? I don't need that second layer. But the only reason I did the second layer was in case these seams did not match up. This line here, and this line here. I mean, because I can keep going with that. You see how that? Yeah, see, that line didn't match up at all. So I'm going to take this back. Like I said, history. Go to your history. Where's your history? Bam. And let's take it back a second. And let's go in here and to the layer. Bam. And let's hit the delete, and we're just going to softly go around that. Right there, maybe. Awesome, right? So now we have a button that wasn't there that's there now. All right, so let's flatten the... Well, wait. Yeah, this looks good. I think this looks good. You know, honestly, there were no professional studio lights. I think I just used reflective light off the ceiling, and that's why you get kind of this the light comes back down. In any image, you can kind of assess where the light's coming from. It's hitting his hair, and it's creating a shadow right on his face. So it's coming from up top, above them, which sometimes doesn't really work with their eyes. So my remedy for that, people, make sure they look up. Make sure their chins are up. The purpose of shooting down on someone is to eliminate double chins, really pop the color in the eyes, and it just, in my opinions, it adds a nice perspective. I mean, anyone can take a photograph straight on, and most people do. In my opinion, what makes a good photographer is dynamics. If you're shooting differently, different angles, then you're different. And different is good, in my opinion, because you're original. You have style, your own style. Anybody can point and shoot Polaroid style up in your face, straight up. I mean, like, obviously his chin is down in that, and honestly, that's why his eyes are in the dark. You got a little bit of light coming in here on this one, but essentially, if I had a Gary Fong diffuser on this particular camera. We were shooting with 5 different cameras that night, so I mean it was hard to keep all the equipment on one camera. But in any account, I think it looks okay. So I'm just go ahead and save this. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the hue saturation and I'm going to drop it down almost to black and white. And then I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to go in to my paintbrush tool. No, not paintbrush, my bucket, paint bucket. And selecting black, we're going to drop that mug on the top, right? I'm going to go to my gradient tool, and I'm going to select radius. Bam. You see that? And we're going to drop the opacity about 30%, and we're going to add a layer mask. See that layer mask that just popped up in there? The cool thing about videos is you can stop them and rewind them. And I'm just going to drag this out, right? And I'm going to go to the paintbrush now that I've got a good basis. And I'm going to paint out just the center. We're going to create just a black hole of directional perspective on the subject. I mean, like, there you go. There you have it. And I actually may add a little bit more back in just to kind of... No, I like it like that. Okay. Let's flatten the image there. And I did a Shift-Command-L for levels. And that's the effect. Which one do you like better? You may not like either of these. You may say, hey, you know what? Do it in sepia tone, do it in black and white. I don't know. But for me, you know, this could be a different option that they can use. So let's save an edited version. All right, 12, bam. All right, so get that one out of the way, and let's keep on rolling. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start another series because these files get really large, and I don't know what Google will enable me to upload. So let's stop this, and I'll see you guys on the next bit. Again, I'm Paul Perdue with PerdueVision.com or paulperdue.com. Check me out online.